Alrighty, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the Funding Your Business webinar. My name is Brooke Quinn, and I am the Senior Business Development Representative here at the Lake Superior Community Partnership. Before we get started, I'm going to let you know about some housekeeping rules. And if you do have any questions during the webinar, there is a question box on the side of your screen. And if you do have a question, feel free to ask at any time. I will see the questions as they come in, and I will answer them during or at the end of the webinar. My contact information will also be listed at the end of this presentation. Alrighty, so during this webinar, I will talk about the different types of funding, what to look for when looking for funding, and what tools and resources the Lake Superior Community Partnership has to offer. So what are the types of funding that are out there? So when it comes to funding, there are different types to look into. There are loans, which are funds that can be borrowed and eventually paid back over a period of time. Grants and investments, which are a type of loan, and as well as crowdsourcing. And these are the most common types of funding models that can be used. Now that we know the different types of funding models, let's dive deeper into where to get funding from. And on this slide, I have listed a few options. The first one I will mention is traditional lending. When I refer to traditional lending, I'm talking about banks and credit unions. And here you can work with your local lenders on what rates and amount of funding dollars to help with your company start or even grow and expand. Another type would be community and government lending and/or grants. These are different program applications and certain industry-led initiatives that can come from these funding sources. And one example is the County of Marquette's EDC funding opportunity. And later on in the webinar, I will talk about both the EDC funding opportunities in greater detail. And other ways to produce funding are through investors. And this could be a private partner who is willing to loan a certain amount of funding and would like to be paid back over a period of time, or an investor who would not only loan money to your growing business, but would like to be a part of it as well in the public eye. And a way to creatively access funds would be through crowdsourcing. And many of you have heard of GoFundMe's, and this avenue is based on community support and mutual love of what you do for your business. And now we know the options for funding a business. Now let's dive into what to consider when making the ask for those funds. Whether you are starting a business or looking to grow and expand, there are always questions to be asked and factors to consider. One being is financial planning. And how will the dollars be spent over time? And financial plans consist of financial projections, cash flow statements, balance sheets, profit and loss, and that's just a few. These statements are important for the banks to see because they show the health of the company. And typically, when asking for funds from a traditional lender or some grantors, depending on if they are state or local, and sometimes investors, financial projections are roughly 3 years will be needed to show that health. And when working on projections, keep in mind exactly like how realistic your guesstimations are. Sometimes costs of starting up a business can be hopefully less than anticipated, but sometimes it'll be more than anticipated. What about the hidden expenses that are not always thought about, like health insurance, increase in equipment, legal fees? These are just some of the hidden items to consider when looking and asking for funding. And the LSCP can help with creating these financial projections and statements. And again, I will explain more about those tools later on in this webinar. And speaking of costs to consider, when working on your cash flow projections, it will show exactly how much is truly needed to be asked for if it be a loan or a grant you're applying for. And with grants and loans, there are more details that need to be ironed out when making that asks. So, what are your funding funds going towards when expanding or starting up? Are the funds being used for job creation, payroll, for purchasing inventory, equipment? Um, and do not afraid to be detailed on these asks. And one detail to not miss is when you are applying for a loan or a grant, is to make sure to be on that deadline and make sure to have all your financial documents, your business plan, and all the other documents due and ready when the application is due. And also, something that it might not be nice to think about, but what if the funding is less than received than what you expected? And the LSCP has can assist with this option if you do end up needing to fill that gap. And I will talk about that just in a few. And one thing I want to let everyone on this webinar so far to know is that when looking at financials and searching for dollars towards your business, it is okay to feel overwhelmed, especially when you're starting out. Any startups or anything like that, it's okay to feel overwhelmed. It is okay if the original financial plan or plan in general changes. It may seem overwhelming and or frustrating. However, keep doing what you're doing. Keep looking for those funds, keep applying. And if you do need help, do not be afraid to consult with your financial planner or your financial lender. If you need a recommendation for a financial planner or a lender, the Lake Superior Community Partnership would be happy to send you a list or those in the area. And working on financial projections, it's not as scary as it sounds. It does sound like that, but it's not as scary. I promise you that. They may not be the cheeriest task to work on for some. However, it is always okay to ask questions. Lenders and grantors are always willing to help and want to see you do well. And they are all about the details. So just make sure you have those details ready. Also, keep in mind when creating a financial plan, this is a living document. These plans, much like a business plan, can and will change. As your business grows and expands, so will your financial needs. And now that we've gone over what is needed when searching for funding, let's talk about the tools and the resources that the LSCP can help with, as well with your funding needs. And some of the tools and resources that the LSCP can provide range from lending programs with the Market County EDC funding and financial projections. And I am going to go over these examples like the gap financing, COVID load program, more of this in depth on the cash flow statements, break-even analysis in a little bit. So the first lending tool is the Market County EDC's revolving loan fund, which the LSCP helps administer for gap financing needs. So with around $90,000 available to lend at this point in time, this revolving loan fund is to provide the gap financing while creating and retaining jobs to stimulate growth of new business and industry, to stimulate expansion of current businesses and industry, and to stabilize and diversify the county's economy. Now, this funding can be used for land and building acquisitions, construction and renovations, equipment and machinery purchases, along with working capital. And with this funding, the EDC can only put up a maximum of a third of the funding to fill the gap. And the recipient must have some funding involved and must partner with a traditional lender. An example of this would be needing money to purchase a piece of equipment for your business. And let's say for numbers sake that it cost $30,000 to purchase. If you can put in $10,000 and your bank is willing to partner with you and lend you $10,000, right now you have a total of 20,000, but you need 30. There is a gap of 10,000 that is needed to purchase the piece of equipment. And this program can help and assist with filling that gap. Now, another lending program that the EDC has is the COVID loan program. And with about 60,000 left to lend with these funds, this fund can be available to help alleviate sudden and severe economic dislocation caused by COVID. At this point in time, every business, whether an existing or even a startup business, has been affected by COVID. And what makes this fund different from the gap funding is the guidelines, is that this program does not require a commercial loan. There is a lower interest rate, and it can be used for startups and existing businesses. And if you have questions or are interested in either of these loan programs, feel free to reach out to Mary Myers, our business development director in our office, and she can help you more and help you with these applications for these funding programs. Now, outside of lending, the LSCP has financial tools that can be used, and one is our break-even analysis. And this tool factors in the cost of the material purchased and the time spent in creating the product, and so much more details. It even factors in how much to sell at a wholesale and a retail value. And if you are interested in this tool, feel free to reach out to me, and I'm happy to share more information about it, because this is a pretty cool tool. This shows exactly all the nitty-gritty details of how to price your product and your service for that matter. And another amazing tool is that the LSCP can assist with is financial projections. And this tool shown here was provided with the partnership between Northern Initiatives and the Michigan Economic Development Corporation. This tool, phenomenal tool, came to life. And this entire spreadsheet can help create cash flow statements, balance sheets, profit and loss, payroll, and so much more details. And it's super easy and user friendly. And if you are needing help with any of these tools and or need cash flow statements or projections, feel free to contact myself and we can work with you on them together. You don't have to do these financial statements alone, I promise. And depending on what you need for further funding, resources such as the Michigan Economic Development Corporation, like I mentioned earlier, MDARD, which is the Michigan Department of Agricultural and Rural Development, and LEO, which is the Labor and Economic Organization, can provide targeted funding opportunities such as capital access, and the Going Pro Talent Fund, which is a reimbursement fund to help train current or newly hired employees in your industry. So there was a lot discussed today regarding funding options and where to go for opportunities in much more details. But I do want to let you know a key takeaway from this is if you are looking to start your business or expand your business and grow, ask yourself what your business needs and assess what funding option is available to meet those needs. And if you're not sure what funding to go for, what grants, loans, resources that are out there, the Lake Superior Community Partnership can work with you to figure that out. We're always happy to help you with whatever your loans may be or what questions you do have. And I do want to say thank you for your time to listen and learn more about funding your business. But before I will go, I will look and see if there are any questions that have come through the chat. So as of right now, I'm not seeing any questions regarding it. I know it's a lot of information to take in, but if you do have any questions, my contact information is on the slide. And again, if you need any help, just feel free to let us know.